Condo takeover HOA lawsuit. I just bought a condo unit last year, and throughout this year, we found out now, not previously disclosed, about a ton of structural and material repairs that are needed to fix up the building. The total amount is ridiculous and has no real basis or plan. In any case, they've violated our 22.1 statements by saying there is no special assessment plan for this year or the next 2 years as of 2022. There are reports that are now surfacing that show inspection reports by architects hired which detailed out a $2 million plus cost, and our reserves were $500K. These reports were not disclosed during the buying process, even though they clearly knew and discussed this since 2021. We're also now finding out that the law firm that the board and association has on the board is using a lawyer who does condo takeovers to basically force a massive $4 million association down our throats, which would more than double our current HOA. We've just taken a vote to try and overturn the assessment, but they pulled out some BS sketchy answers with no math and said that it didn't pass. There was absolutely zero transparency into how this was tallied up, and not to mention, they didn't even allow virtual attendees to vote. You had to be there in person, so good luck if you're an investor. Anyone have experience with this and what the best option might be to take action against the association or the board? I've heard litigation might not be the smartest idea because of the time and money it would take, but I'm not sure what options I have that would be effective. Most of the roads I've gone down have been a dead end, and it seems like most law firms defend the HOA, but not many represent owners for litigation, so it's been really tough to even find a lawyer who is willing to litigate this. An answer: you're going to have to go the lawsuit route, find a lawyer, but it will be challenging. What state are you in? What it feels like is that the developer is making a play for the whole building and is conspiring with the board to make it happen by keeping maintenance low and then laying a big assessment to cover necessary repairs. If they were just keeping the fees low and not doing maintenance, you might have a good case. You could sue the board personally and the HOA for going this route. I see you're making a case for overturning the assessment. Not something you could do in Florida, for that would be a board responsibility, not HOA. How was the vote organized? Officially via the bylaws or grassroots effort? If you followed the process, you have a case, especially if you ask for the records of the election, you're entitled to them, to count the vote yourself. If you have a case for lack of disclosing known information, like a big assessment already voted in, you might be able to sue the previous owner, which is the seller, but not the HOA. Sounds like this is your biggest issue because of the lack of the 22.1 information. If the seller knew and didn't disclose, you have a case. If the seller didn't know, hard to have a case, but probably not an issue to the HOA. If they're putting large assessments in, there's a case that they're doing the right thing by addressing the needs of the HOA. See Surfside. What would you do? Would you lawyer up in this case? Let me know. My HOA is still trying to charge me $225 for old violations, posted by That's a Spicy Meatball. So I made a post a while ago saying that my HOA was charging me $250 for year-old violations. I made a mistake, it's actually $225, but I digress. Well, I called them after being ignored in the app messages for over 2 weeks and finally got a breakdown of why I'm being charged. Many people said they should take it up with the owner of the property, but to my understanding, the property management and the HOA are pretty much under the same umbrella, so I can't really do that. They said that the charge is a collection of various $25 charges for things like parking violations, trash violations, and weed violations. Violations that start at September 2021 and end at August 2022, all adding up to $225. These violations are ones that I've received, but I didn't know I was going to be charged for them until now. I've emailed them back telling them that this is predatory at best, and demanding an itemized list and pictures of each violation, but I'm worried I'll end up having this taken out of my deposit as my lease officially ends in a couple of weeks. I'm guessing that they do this on purpose to prey on the fact that we would be too busy moving to try and fight these violations and get that deposit back at the last second. My question is there a chance I could take them to small claims court? What would I have to lose? Should I talk to a lawyer first? I could afford these violations, but I refuse to let them get away with this gross practice if I can help it. And honestly, getting under their skin would be great. Very good comment here says, I don't think you have a case yet, as you haven't been damaged. You'll be damaged when your landlord takes the $225 from your deposit, but your case will be against your landlord, not the HOA. If the HOA or property management company didn't properly notice you or the landlord, then the fines will likely not be collectible. There may be rules around the notice as well. Usually, association members have to be provided with a chance to cure or fix the violations before the fines can be assessed. You'll also want to look at the landlord and tenant laws in your state. There's likely a provision about when your deposit must be returned and what can be deducted from it. OP says that they're leasing under a company with a signed lease and state that it's the owner's responsibility, which is me, I guess, which I've tried to do, and I have complied and fixed the violations they sent me as far as I can remember. I'm just wondering if they have any leeway in this, since they sent these charges for violations between 1 and 2 years old. And this comment says, no, you have no leeway. The moment you were given notice of the violation, it was your responsibility to rectify the violation, including paying any fines. Your lease agreement will tell you what fining authority they have and what will happen to any outstanding fine balance once your lease terminates. So OP is a renter. Should they pay this or should they talk to their landlord first? Late uncle's water bill through the HOA, posted by Monkey Basketball. My uncle passed away a little over a year ago. He lives in an area where the HOA either owns or controls the water pump for the surrounding area. I do not live in the state he resided in, and I haven't heard of this type of situation, but I imagine it's the norm in some communities. After he passed away, we discovered that, while his water was still running, he had racked up a $20,000 water bill. The water bill is coming to us now, since his death, with hefty interest, fines added on, all to be collected by the HOA itself. My dad, who is the sole heir of the property, has suggested a compromise to pay a quarter of what is owed. The HOA said they would convene to discuss. The group did come together and meet, and my dad was not present as he also lives across the country. They informed him after the fact that he was indeed responsible for the entire sum of the bill, plus the fees, which are still in hundreds of dollars in addition to the outstanding bill every month. They also went on to explain that my uncle was a difficult person to have in the area. He had unsavory people in and around the property, which sadly is the truth that we know of, and had to contend with ourselves as family members. Drug use and mental illness do not make for an excellent neighbor. However, it is stated in some of the documentation that my dad did receive that an unpaid bill for your water through this HOA would result in water shutoff. Never have we seen the water shut off in any of my dad's prior visits or subsequent long stay after his brother's passing, when he worked to rehab the house, as well as do an enormous amount of work to clean up the property. This, in addition to preparing it for sale to a great prospective buyer who is quite literally waiting in the wings to purchase the home and property. My question is, what exactly would others do here? My argument, and I haven't thought it beyond this for a short time, is that some of the rules and regulations of the HOA are being adhered to, including charges and interest fees going to the property owner for unpaid or late water bills. And yet, the other rule that we believe exists, which says that a water bill unpaid for a certain amount of time will result in water shutoff, was a rule that they did not adhere to. In my mind, you cannot have it both ways. Not since my uncle's passing have there been any questionable visitors or tenants at the property, and it has been improved enormously. My dad is a sober veteran in his 70s who worked tirelessly for months with my brother and family friend to clean up the property and begin house renovations. There is a well-qualified buyer who owns the neighboring property waiting to complete this sale, finishing renovating the home and moving in with his family. And my dad, who hasn't even grieved his twin brother's death after being handed this mess, is really struggling. This is, by far and away, the largest reason the sale is at a standstill. Any ideas? Mother-in-law was fighting stage 4 ovarian cancer a few years ago, had no desire to take down our Christmas lights. We were constantly visiting the hospital, and it was very touch and go. We had a child under 1, and it was a very emotional time. The HOA compliance officer constantly would stop at our house at all hours of the day. We had security cameras, so finally, after reviewing the footage, we called the guard shack to see what the emergency was. We were told that Christmas has been over for 3 weeks, and we need to have our lights down before the end of the month, or he would fine us $25 a day for the first week and then $50 each day after that. We explained the situation, and the guy said, "Well, it's not my problem, take your lights down." My wife exploded on the D-bag. We went to the next board meeting and let loose on the board and the general manager. Turns out, it wasn't an HOA policy. The guy worked for the security company that was hired to work the main entrance guard shack and would get a bonus if he would patrol and hand out fines for HOA violations. This butt would just drive around and make up his own rules and fines, and by the next meeting, he was fired and a new security company was hired when the contract was up in the summer. Everything worked out in the end. D-bag fired, mother-in-law cancer-free for over a year. Way to go, OP. Screw cancer, man. Not pay me for the website that I built? Say goodbye to your business, house, and reputation. Posted by NZ Devon. This happened in the early 2000s. I used to be a freelance front-end dev and a search engine optimization guru. Back then, getting on the front page of Google was pretty simple. Link exchanging was popular, but risky. I never did that, but I did have a single website that had serious page rank clout due to it being linked as a trusted source, directly from one of the top and most trusted websites in the world. I would use this website for the best clients to get their page rank and their search engine position leapfrogging other, older, and more trusted websites. One day, I was approached by someone I'll call Bob. Now, Bob sold travel packages. He needed to revamp his basic existing website with a complex website built with pretty tricky back-end coding. I could do the front end, but I had to hire a back-end dev to build the functionality. Bob had a major launch in a month's time, and it had to be ready. I usually ask for a 25% deposit up front, but Bob said no. He was stung by the last dev, and he wasn't going to lose any more money. Now, from the moment that I met Bob, my gut was telling me that this was going to end badly. The problem was, I needed the money, and it was worth quite a lot of money for me and the dev. I skipped the deposit on the promise that he paid in full before it went on his server, and Bob agreed. For an entire month, we worked day and sometimes all night to get this done in his time frame. With a day to spare, we had done it, and I'd never been so proud of what we achieved. I was honestly excited to show Bob. The next day, I sent the link to my test server, and he phoned me to discuss it. Bob said everything looked good, but he was worried his server's PHP version may be too old to run it. I assured him that it would, but he said he was too scared it won't, and we would scrub our hands of it. We went backwards and forwards, but he was insistent the site has to be uploaded and tested on his server before he parts with a penny. I chatted to my dev. He didn't like it either, but he agreed that we would upload our work onto his server. Bob gave me the FTP details and the server login, and I uploaded the site. I told him it was live, and then nothing. I sent several emails and then phone calls. The emails went unanswered, and the phone went to voicemail. Sensing a major problem, I rushed to my computer, fired up my FTP program to delete our work on his server, and access denied. He had locked us out, and the following day, he went live with our work. For several days, I tried phoning until one morning he answered. He answered the phone and then said, "Listen, I'm not ever going to pay you, and there's nothing you can do about it." And then Bob hung up. Rage was a good word for my feelings. I was shaking while I still held the phone in my hand. For the next hour, my range of expletives was growing in complexity. As I sat there figuring out what to do, it hit me. Revenge will be mine. I registered a new domain name, which was Bob's travel domain name plus sucks at the end. If Bob's website was called bobstravel.com, I had purchased bobstravelsucks.com. I uploaded our work, basically an exact mirror of his live website, onto my new domain. I used my all-powerful mega PageRank domain to link to my new sucks domain. Within a month, my website jumped above his website in Google for every conceivable search phrase you would use for the packages he sold. No matter what you typed in, my site was the first result, and his was always below mine. During that month, I created a second website, which was Bob's full name with sucks at the end. On this second website, I posted what happened, screenshots of his emails, and warning everyone what a con man he is. Bob had a somewhat unusual first and last name. Again, within a month, my website was above his own personal website. I then forgot all about it. About 4 months later, I get a cease and desist email from a solicitor's firm. A quick Google showed the solicitor's firm was made up and it didn't exist. I reply back with, "I'm not ever going to take them down and there's nothing you can do about it." Every now and then, I'd get emails from people he had conned by taking their money for a travel package but never booking their package. I'd put those on both of my websites, making sure those juicy important keywords, his full name and company name, were spread across each negative review. A few more months pass and I get an anonymous email linking to a new domain called Austin Sucks. I'm told to remove my 2 websites and he will remove this new one. A quick search and what do you know, it isn't even on Google. No one could find it. I reply back for a second time with his comment to me. As each month passes, I'm getting more and more people emailing me saying that they've been ripped off. I keep adding them to my website. Turns out, the travel agency world is well regulated, and they started an investigation into Bob's company, using my website as their main tool. I get a call from Bob. Bob is not a happy Bob. In fact, Bob is more of a desperate Bob. Looking at this text now, I know you can almost hear the despair and resentment in Bob's voice. Bob pleads and literally begs me to pull the sites down. Not only is he being investigated by the Travel Agency Association, but he had some very important friends that didn't appreciate the bad press he was causing in their circles. He offers to pay me the money he owed, nothing more, just what he owed. For the third time, and with a massive smile on my face, I say, "Listen, I'm not ever taking them down, and there's nothing you can do about it." Roll on a few months, and I discover his travel company has been removed from all travel associations. No matter what you typed into Google, my website outranked his, and all the bad reviews on my site were the first thing his potential customers would see. I crippled his business so badly, it went bust. During the collapse, one of his ex-employees contacted me and told me how hard he had worked to get my websites off the first page. He had registered dozens and dozens of other domains in hopes that some would jump ahead. Little did he know, only the top dozen websites in the world could jump it. Apparently, his property was tied into loans on the failing business, and he lost his house too. It took me just about a year to turn his business from a cash cow to a dead cow. Motto of the story: if you ever think to mess with a dev, don't. Update. Many of you are saying I should have taken the money and not pulled the sites down. At that point, it wasn't about the money. He thought he could simply buy his way out of it after pretending to be a solicitor and then trying the same thing on me. Him knowing that I didn't care about the money anymore must have driven him crazy because money was all he cared about. He then knew he could do nothing to stop his business going down the pan, and all he could do was watch it fall apart around him. Manager bullies me for several months until I finally quit. I made sure to get him fired. Posted by Nub Muffin. This happened around 2016. I, at the time, 26-year-old male, had been without a job for a while, looking for a better paying job than I had before, and I found one at a camera security company that was looking to hire someone for the service desk. I went for an interview and got a call back later that day. If I wanted the job, it was mine. Now, my new manager was an ex-military, specifically ex-army, not American, just pointing that out. He really didn't like having people disagree with or going against him, a thing I was very unaware of when I took the job. For 2 or 3 months, everything was going well. The manager was cordial and seemed to really enjoy having me there. I worked my butt off every day, as the software we were working with was unknown to me, so I studied a lot and even went overseas to another country to follow a course and succeed on my exams. However, after that period, my grandpa, who was like a second father to me, suddenly was hospitalized with a brain bleed, like an aneurysm. He was found in the shower. He'd collapsed after he'd pressed his panic button. He was in assisted living. This all happened on a Wednesday. The family came together in the hospital several times to show support and see Grandpa. However, on Friday afternoon, 3 p.m., I was called up by my father, which was my grandpa's son, while I was at work, and he explained to me that my grandpa, unfortunately, passed away. I was in tears on the phone and in utter shock. It took me a while to calm down. I went to my manager and I explained what had just happened and that I'm going home to be with my family. However, that day there was an event. The company was doing a charity event, and this charity was going to be public news. They already announced the amount of people participating, and it would look bad if they were a person down. It was basically just for good PR. So he refused to let me go. I told him that by law, he cannot deny me, as my contract states that I can take a day for a death in the family, and that I was leaving now. This was the turning point. He went from a nice manager to a manager from hell. Suddenly, everything I did was wrong. I was told he couldn't believe I was in this line of work for 6 years and be this bad at my job. He cussed me out and ridiculed me in front of my colleagues and even clients. This all continued for several months and severely began to impact my mental health. I had a talk with my parents and my fiance, at the time still my girlfriend. I'd asked her to marry me in December 2016, and they basically told me that this was not okay, that I didn't have to take this, and that I should give them my 2 weeks notice. I agreed. The following day, I went to HR and I explained why I was leaving the company and that I couldn't stand the idea of working even a single day more with that excuse of a human being. HR showed interest in my well-being and, even more importantly, in what I was claiming about my manager. They had received more complaints about him, but nobody had proof of his wrongdoings. So they asked me if I had proof. I told them I'd be looking for a new job, but I'd gladly fit in the time to collect all I could. For the next 2 weeks, I collected everything. Memos, emails, voice recordings. When you're on the phone, the calls are automatically recorded, and the dummy was stupid enough to cuss me out while I was on the phone. Lucky me. Also lucky was that my colleagues at the desk had my back this entire time. They'd been trying to cheer me up, said I was doing fine work, and that they also didn't understand this man's behavior. So when I came by and asked if they'd mind signing a document that everything I stated in the paperwork was the truth, they gladly did. I had one last talk with HR and him at the same time the last day I was there. Before he even walked in, I told the HR person who was mediating, hey look, he's going to walk in, say what he wants to say, and I'll be quiet and listen. When he's done, I'll explain my side, and he's going to interrupt me, tell you I'm lying, and then talk about some completely non-related subject matter to drag the conversation in another direction. She looked surprised at my comment, but had no time to respond as Mr. Army Man walked in and began his spiel. Exactly as I stated, he'd blurt his side out, and once I tried to talk, he'd consistently interrupt me and tried to pick fights. Eventually, I got up. I told HR, hey, I told you so. Here's the documents you've been asking for. I placed a filled folder with several dozens of emails, plenty of memos, and a USB containing 3 phone conversations, and even video footage of him yelling at me in both voice and video recordings, and you could easily hear him cuss me out. I gave the manager a big, bright smile, who was smirking victoriously, and I said to him, hey, I don't think you're going to be smirking like that for long. Enjoy your little victory. His smirk disappeared into a confused scowl, but I slammed the door on him before he could respond, and I left the building feeling like a huge, and I mean humongous size, planet-sized amount of stress fell off of my shoulders. Within a month, I was back to my old self. 2 months later, I was working at my new job, and out of curiosity, I checked my ex-manager's LinkedIn. Unemployed. I called one of my old colleagues to ask what exactly went down. My proof opened Pandora's box. He was being disrespectful to the female staff, insulted the older staff, and on multiple occasions, he was less than cordial with our external hires. None of these complaints were acted upon because it was his word against theirs, and there was no proof. However, me providing overwhelming proof of his gross behavior towards me made all the other complaints now be taken as fact. He was promptly fired less than a month after I'd left, and they refused to provide him with any form of reference. In a field like his, references mean a lot. So, not getting one from a company you worked at for nearly a year is a huge red flag. It's now 2020, 4 years passed, and according to LinkedIn, he's still not working in his field. I'll gladly admit that I felt rather wickedly satisfied, and I still do whenever I happen to think about it. HOA takedown. HOA destroys my property, but I'm not even part of the HOA. Click the video on your screen so you don't miss this crazy fallout, and I'll see you there.